and welcome to another episode of Transcontinental Overload. I'm Stephanie, your host. Nothing's changed here. I'm still in Austin, Texas. I know it's been a little bit quiet. I haven't been interacting that much on social media and in terms of recordings, even though I have a few interviews that I just need to spend some time on. But yeah, I just felt a little depleted over the last few weeks. I had some technical issues too. My headphones broke and then another pair broke and I just, I didn't have the energy to get it all fixed and sorted, and I needed a few days where I just needed to do lots of yoga and face masks and watch Germany's Next Top Model and eat chocolate. I think we all have those days, and sometimes it's the only thing that works to get your energy back up. But yeah, I'm back, and as I said, there are a few episodes to come that I now have energy to work on again. And here is the first one. My guest today is someone you might recognize if you were listening to my very first episodes over a year ago. It's Cath Brew, an Australian illustrator who lives in the UK. Cath was one of the very first people I interviewed, and that was before the COVID crisis, before the pandemic turned the world upside down. Back then, it wasn't a pandemic yet, and we had no idea what was to come. It was so good to be talking to her again, as we got to delve into all the things that we didn't have time for when we spoke over a year ago. So Cath is giving us a quick nutshell version of her expat journey so that those listeners who are not familiar with her background story can catch up. And then we're veering off towards other topics. I think it goes without saying that when we enter a new relationship, we don't really know what we're in for. It all requires a leap of faith. And when it's someone from another country, there are even more unknowns. So I would say it's a pretty daring thing to leave your home country and move halfway across the world right into your new partner's home after just a few weeks. But that's exactly what Cath did. And, well, let's say that wasn't the only change in her life. But enough said. Let's hear Cath's story. Welcome, Cath, back to Transcontinental Overload.
Thank you very much.
It's been a while. I just realized that you were one of the very first people I interviewed for the podcast, and I think it was just before the whole world went into. Well, it wasn't a pandemic at that point, but it was just starting. But we didn't know at the time of our interview what was going to hit us. So things have changed.
Naivety. No clue.
I know. I think we're both still in the same place that we were a year ago, and I don't think we've gone anywhere.
No.
This last year.
I'm having a holiday in my front room or on the sofa.
Yeah, I know. We're discovering things about our surroundings that we didn't know before, and
learning to appreciate the small things.
Yep, absolutely. Anyway, it's so lovely to have you back here.
Yeah.
And continue our chat, really, because I feel like, I mean, we talked through your journey as an expat, but I'm hoping that today we could focus on some other things. So I'm excited about that. But I mean, for those of the listeners who haven't heard your story, and who you are, where you are, and how you got there, why don't you give us a little story in a nutshell background?
Okay. I'm an Australian, born and bred Sydney. Grew up living in Sydney, but doing an awful lot of travel as a family, which was just wonderful. So it was kind of inevitable that I was someone that was going to keep exploring the world. And I went to a conference in 2005, I think it was. 2005. And the person that I sat next to the first night at the conference is now my wife. And that was in the UK, in Bath. And so
Lovely place. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very nice place. And so I eventually, very long story short, I'm now living in the UK and working as an illustrator. So. But the funny thing is that when I met my wife, it wasn't just an ordinary, well, I mean, it's ordinary to me, but an ordinary conference. It was actually a deaf conference. And that's deaf, not deaf, as in DEAF.
So what on earth is a death conference?
Well, it was called The Social Context of Death, Dying and Disposal. And at the time, I was a cemeteries conservation officer for a heritage organisation in Sydney. And my wife was an embalmer and had been working in the funeral profession for many, many years. And I was just fed up of kind of not meeting anyone and just thought I'll just focus on my career, as you do. I thought I'd rather be on my own than not have, like, be in the wrong relationship and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought, right, I'll go off to a conference. And then life changed very quickly. And it was it was kind of a funny story, actually, because by that time I had realized I was gay, but I hadn't said anything to anybody. And I went to this conference, and the whole time I spent, the two people that I connected with was Angie and this other woman who was also a lesbian. And I didn't say anything to them at all. But we got on really well, and we had this really nice time. And when I went to say goodbye to them both, I gave one of them a hug, and that was fine. And I went to give Angie a hug as well. And it was really odd. It was like really short. She kind of just turned away and walked away. And I thought, that's a bit rude. Like, that's a bit weird. And unbeknown to me, that she turned around and she burst into tears, because she the whole time she thought I had been gay and had liked me and hadn't. And then at the end, she suddenly doubted herself and thought I wasn't. And she was like, oh, well, there's another one gone and I'll just go home to the dog, kind of thing. And it was because the other woman, she needed to get to the station. I was putting her bags in the back of my car. And just as we left, she said to me, oh, what was the best thing about the conference for you, Cath? And in a split second, I said, meeting you, this woman, because she was like someone I'd never met before. Yeah. She was kind of, she had shaved head, she had tattoos all over her head. She was really like kind of scary looking on the outside, but really soft, gentle soul. And so my wife took that to mean that I was keen on this woman.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. That sounds so much like middle school.
Oh, it was pathetic. It was awful. But it continues, because then I realized that I needed, like, I said goodbye to this other woman, dropped her off, and then I had 24 hours before I had to return my car to the airport, and I found myself heading down to where Angie lived, and it was full on, like I couldn't breathe. I had butterflies. I had this like stress headache, and it was just this huge physical thing. And I found myself heading down, and then I looked at the map of where she lived, and I thought, because I thought, oh, I could just knock on the door and say, I was just passing. Yeah. And then I looked at the map, and it's this little island where you do not pass. You have to go there.
Yeah, and how do you get to an island? You can't.
Well, exactly. It's like you're not passing to get to this thing. And then I imagined myself knocking on the door and her opening the door, and that split second of what her facial reaction was going to be. If it was okay, then it would be fine. But if it wasn't, it'd be like, oh, no. And I chickened out and I lost my nerve. And I stayed in a hotel about an hour and a half away from where we now live. And wrote her a letter and didn't come out, and just said that I'd really enjoyed the time, and actually it helped me work out some stuff. And I emailed it to her when I got back to Sydney. And then, but when I got back to Sydney, within 24 hours, the very next morning, I was having to take a bus tour of a whole lot of paying customers for my work on a cemetery tour, a couple of hours south of Sydney. So I'd got in at like 6 o'clock in the morning the previous day, sent this email, had a really kind of rough night, and then woke
jet lag and everything.
Exactly. And then I'm having to perform for like 50 people on a bus, and like, oh, this is a cemetery and blah blah blah. And then and anyway, in that time, Angie had replied to my letter, and she completely said all this stuff about how she liked me and blah blah, all this stuff. And then, because I was so tired at the end of this day of doing this tour, I got back and I just went to sleep. And then she got anxious that I hadn't replied, and I got another email saying, oh, I'm really sorry, I hope I said, no, it's fine. I'm just completely shattered.
It's so funny. I mean, honestly,
So,
this is like
that's our story.
oh my goodness. And did you ever confess that you were basically driving past and considering?
I did eventually tell her, but I think it might not have been until I came here. I don't know, I can't remember. And she laughed, and her words were actually, if I had turned up, she said you would have missed your plane.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so that could have taken a whole different
it's quite a story. But it was and then I realized actually when I went home, once I'd got my head together after this tour and everything, that I was more afraid of not seeing her again than I was of coming out and starting that whole process. So then I knew that I had to, because she then said she was coming out to Australia 6 weeks later. And I'm like,
you better prepare people.
I've got to start doing something. And at the time I was still at home living with my mother. And so, rapid change.
She's like, I booked a flight, surprise. Yeah.
Don't go to a conference, people, if you don't want to change in your life.
So then she came to visit, and
so she came.
Wow,
to
so you hadn't seen each other for a few weeks at that point.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't afford to get back, and I said I can't afford to get back till May, and she said, "Don't be stupid, woman." She said, "I'm coming out," and it was a bit difficult because I had to kept family to get their heads around it and friends and whatever, and I was at home with mum, and I moved out for 6 weeks, and we stayed in an apartment, and that kind of gave us time on our own, and then time for mum to kind of come over and meet her and whatever, and we had this amazing time in Sydney. So I worked just on the southern side of the Harbour Bridge, and we managed to get an apartment that was just on the north side. So I would drive to work, and then she'd walk across the bridge at lunchtime, and it was really nice. It was a lovely time. And then I moved over here, decided to work out whether I would like it. I'd travelled here before but not lived.
Yeah.
So I came over for 5 months to see if I'd like it.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? You meet someone and you don't really have much time, and then you have to make a decision of like, do we want to be together? Do we want to, start building something together? And then did she consider staying in Australia, or was that not?
She did.
What was your thought process?
Well, we looked at all kinds of things. I came to be here because I thought if I really badly needed a change from my job. I'd been doing it for 2 years and I'd had enough. And I said to my boss that I'd met someone and that I wanted to resign, and I was going to come over for 5-6 months, see if I liked it, and then make a decision. And so when I left Australia, she said to me, she spoke to the head of the organization and said, right, there's a senior position for you. There's a promotion for you if you want. She said, I want you to know if you're looking for work and looking around that you might, this is another option, because she wanted me to come back. So I came over for the 5 months, and we were looking at whether Ange could live in Australia. But at that point, Australia didn't recognise same-sex marriages. They did same-sex couple visas, but it was quite complicated. And I could enter the UK in my own right on a UK ancestry visa. So it was easier for me to come here. But we were still considering Australia because it was a really good job. But I never heard anything. I kept emailing the senior person asking and never heard anything. And it was coming up to about like 2 weeks before I was ready to having to make a decision, and she wouldn't reply. So we decided to call her bluff, and I emailed her and said, yes, I'll accept the position. Thank you very much, and just accepted it because we had to be prepared to go. And finally she came back, and she reneged on the offer and denied that this is not my immediate boss. My boss was fantastic. It was the senior one. But reneged on the offer and denied that there'd ever been a position.
But I guess that really made the decision much easier.
Yeah, it did. So I decided that I'd come here, and then I had to go back, obviously, to pack up my life and do everything, and went back to the HR manager and had strong words with them about what had happened. And so by the time I actually got back here, we'd had more time apart than we had together, and we'd got used to that, but it wasn't nice. It was hard work being apart. So coming to be together was great, just to be in the same house.
Yes, and just getting used to each other again,
Mm.
and yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So
It's quite a beginning to our story.
so then it sounds like you got when did you get married? Did you get married
We
quite
got
soon after that?
Well, we had a civil partnership,
Hmm.
which is all we were allowed to do in 2007. So there was no, I was here in my own right, so there was no
Yeah,
time constraints for me to get married,
because you
which
had
was
the
good.
ancestry visa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I spoke to the immigration about whether I could come in on a civil partnership visa,
Hmm.
and they actually said to me, "You're further ahead in your own right than you would be doing it that way," and it was the
Okay.
time constraints and all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, so we had our civil partnership in 2006, and at that point, I wasn't able to be married or partnered like in that way to Ange in Australia legally.
When was
So
it? When did they make it? When was that in?
well, only a couple of years. Is it 2 years ago now?
I did a quick Ecosia search, December 2017.
I mean, they've had same-sex recognition in terms of, well, we
Yeah,
call it superannuation, but pensions and all that kind of stuff for a
yeah.
while. But it meant that if she got into the country, if trying to get her into the country, I had to sponsor her, and she wasn't able to stay in the country while I was doing all these things. Now it's a completely different ballgame. She can stay, well, I believe at least that she can stay in the country whilst visas happen, and it's because the marriage is recognised, it makes a huge difference. So there was something for me that was quite critical about living in the UK, that it was a personal choice because I wanted something different,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also a place where I could actually live as who I was and be
Yeah.
married and have that right.
Yes.
So it worked from that point of view. Yeah, so we might go back one day, who knows.
I think with any relationship where you are from two different places, it's just there's always options, and I think you hope that your partner will always be supportive of that as well, and that you might just choose, or you might choose another country. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, for us, one of the big things that was part of that is that I'm someone, as I said, who grew up traveling, and I love being outdoors, love going off traveling, all that
yeah.
kind of stuff. It excites me hugely. I didn't know when I married my wife quite to what degree that she was actually a recovering agoraphobic. So the idea of travel and going out was like the
Oh
complete
wow.
opposite. So there's me who needs it like a drug,
Yes.
and then her who needs it not to happen like a drug. And working that out was quite a challenge. So there was it wasn't anything cultural, but it was personal
Yeah.
things. And she would go anywhere with me, but she couldn't do anything on her own. So even the idea of packing up the house and moving was a horrendous prospect for her. It was far too stressful, too difficult. And I think it's stressful for people who are neurotypical, let alone
Yeah.
neurodiverse, because she's also neurodiverse. So there was
Wow.
massive stresses that I love being here, and I just felt like my whole life had suddenly become small and had shut down, and it's like, and it was suffocating. It's like, how do I deal with this? I can't not do this, but I want to be a supportive wife. How do I like?
Yeah.
And it took quite a few years to work through a lot of that. It's been quite
Yes,
hard.
I can imagine. But that's, I mean, that's a huge thing to take on if you think about it. If you, and you didn't really know right at the beginning.
No. And you're all loved up in that early stage,
Oh,
aren't you? Like
and
you'd
you,
say yes to anything.
yes, a compromise doesn't mean, it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, it'll be fine.
yeah,
But I guess,
exactly.
and oh
Yeah.
gosh, so this past year, that must have been an extra,
Yeah, well, for me especially, yeah.
yes, that's what I mean.
I mean, we've both been all right with lockdown, and
Yeah.
she's absolutely loved it, but she's had enough now as well. But one of the things I've been able to bring to her is I've helped her confront all this stuff and look at it, and I've shown her what happens when you get to an airport, what you have to do with your luggage and how you check in, and then all the stuff
Yeah.
and security and all the things. And I think that's one of the things that I've helped her with, is to not so much break out of those fears, but actually realize that she can manage them in ways that she might not have been able to manage them before. Yeah, and so now she had to go to, I was in Australia, I think, and she had to go to Iceland for work, and she went, I still book it all because she struggles with the booking, but she went off and did it herself, and was like, it's just unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only reason we got together. She said, because I'd been to Australia once before. She said, I could do Australia. I knew it. She said, if you were from Manchester, she said, I wouldn't have come and got you. She said, I couldn't do Manchester, but I could do Australia because I'd been there. That was all right. That was in my order of things.
So for the non-familiar with Britain, what is it about Manchester?
Exactly. It's like 5 hours north. That's too far. But she'd been on a plane to Australia, and as long as I picked her up, she was fine. And she'll do things, but she can't book them herself. There's part of the systems and things that she struggles with. So I do that for her, and I've realized that I do things like that help her. But my adjustment to that was I could see her stress rising in certain situations.
Yeah.
So I would pull back and not want to do the activity, or if we were going out for a day somewhere, because I was thinking it would make her anxious, and therefore I would be supportive. But in not doing it, it started to stuff me up, and I started to feel
of course, and you get frustrated because you can feel like your wings are being clamped to your body, and you can't.
Absolutely, and feeling a bit like kind of suffocated in that way. Yeah. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. I have to live my own life within the couple. And what I realized was that I've learnt neurodiversity hugely, because she's been diagnosed as dyspraxic, but also I think is on the spectrum with autism and some other things, and she's very aware of it. But her stresses will rise up, and it's like a fear aggression. It comes up and it's this huge tension, and if I just ignore that and actually push through it and maintain a level of calmness, she calms down and realizes that there's nothing to be frightened of, and we then do something, and then she really enjoys it. But I've got to be quite strong and be able to just deal with stuff that comes up and ignore it.
That's a lot on your plate, I guess.
Yeah, well,
also, because if you're kind of the opposite and you frustrated by not being able to do anything, then because that comes up the same way sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's like a panic.
That tension just comes like, I can.
It was, and it's why, if you think about, like I said at the beginning, only just realizing I was gay, that in about 5 years of living here, I had come out, I'd moved out of my home country, I'd moved out of home, I'd moved obviously to another country and got a job, I'd got married, I'd got made redundant, and then I had to start my own business, and then I moved into someone else's house, and someone who was neurodivergent, like a hell of a lot of stuff. So when I ended up in the doctor's surgery saying, I think I'm depressed, he said, I think you've just used up all your coping strategies. Like, no, I think so.
You've packed a lot into 5 years that other people don't.
Pardon my French, but bloody hell. So it's been an amazing time, but it's also been an incredibly stressful time in some ways, and I don't begrudge any of it. I mean, I would repeat it all tomorrow because it's all learning stuff, and even if I'd known she was agoraphobic or neurodiverse, I don't think it would have stopped anything I've done. But it's been a particularly challenging process in that regard.
And not just because you are doing it all in a country that, I mean, yes, you speak the language obviously, but it's a different culture, a different place to land in, I guess. So,
and it catches you out because it's so similar. Like you fall into this false sense of security that people understand you, and they just don't say things that they haven't got a click. Like, you think you've made sense, and they're all nodding. And then Ange sometimes now will do, I think that's an Australianism, love. Like, puts on a voice and says, okay, you don't understand that, no. Okay, right. We'll start again.
Any examples of that?
Well, one day she said to me, we'd been out somewhere talking to someone, and she said, you need to stop swearing so much in conversations. And I said, but I'm not. She said, but you are. And I'm like, no. And she said, that word. Oh, is that swearing? That's not in Australia. I had no idea. So all these people are thinking I'm being really rude, and I was thinking I was being really like sweet and nice and chatting to people. But also slang, a lot of Australian slang.
I guess
people don't have a clue what you're saying, and it's made me realize what is Australian slang that I didn't think. I mean, there's really obvious things, but other things I hadn't realized that I was talking about.
Yeah, but then slang is and like you said, it's so deceptive because you think, oh yeah, everyone understands what I'm saying, but I mean, we have the same thing going on here. And now I'm at a point after 11 years in the US that sometimes I'm like, is that British or is it?
I know, I can't.
My head is just this big jumble of things,
Yeah.
and then
I'll often say to Ange, do you say that here? And she's like, no. All right, okay, I can't remember anymore.
And yeah, exactly. So there's all that mishmash coming in, but that sense of, oh yeah, I'll be fine because I speak the language is so it's so not true, and some things you just express differently. And I mean, slang obviously is huge, and now and then you've got the generational slang to add to it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And because it catches you out, it almost hits harder. If you go in preparing, knowing that something's going to be different, you're kind of prepared for that. And it's so there's a lot of moments where things that should have been, well, I don't like to say should really, but should have been potentially really nice situations have actually been quite stressful for me because they haven't, on the surface it all looks great, but inside there's all this other stuff going on in my head about what things are. And even just, and it's like everyday things. Like we had a financial guy over, and they were downstairs talking, and I was in my office, and something really good had happened. I came down to make a cup of coffee, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm home and hosed," and they both just looked at me like, "Huh?" And that's when she said, "I think that's an Australianism." And I said, "Do you not use that?" And they went, "No." And home and hose, it was a racing term where your horse finished the race successfully and you're back in the stables home and you've been hosed down. And so it's like you've had a really good streak, you've done well and you're back, and you can enjoy once I explained it, it was fine.
I like that.
Yeah, I like home and hose, it's good. But when you actually start to really think about it, it sounds a bit stupid after a while.
But it's those little things, and and it makes you feel stupid, right? It makes you feel stupid when people look at you like, oh, is that supposed to be English?
Yeah, well, exactly. And you're the odd one out, so they all understand each other. So you don't, so you then start to doubt because you're the only one that understands what you're saying, and it starts to really play with your mind, and it can be quite difficult, I found. But the other thing is, it's actually been, in other ways, it's actually been really empowering in sometimes when I think we talked about it before, the superior mother country stuff with with Britain and Australia. And I've had moments where people have you can tell they've kind of enjoyed making me feel uncomfortable. They've said something. And so what I do is then I purposely switch to Australian slang, and I say it with a smile, but they have not got a clue if I'm being offensive or if I'm actually being nice to them. And it's just taking back a bit of power. And it all makes perfect sense to me, and they haven't got a clue. And I'm not actually being offensive at all, but it's just actually, you're not the only one. It's like way is not the right way, it's just a different way.
It's the endless thing, and this is there's that fine line, isn't it, with in British culture, where it's that it's just the banter and the jokiness and kind of putting everything in, but there was so much passive aggressive in there, and like you said, that superiority complex, which is so odd. And then but when you actually ask, like in a serious way, then it's all jokey, and it's really difficult. I mean, I've had my fair share of World War II jokes.
It's
like, sure. It's really, and yes, I get that sometimes, and you want to make something, you want to make a joke and be all lighthearted and no hard feelings kind of thing, but sometimes it just rubs you
when you're on the receiving end of it. For them, it's their one day and it's your every week.
It's true, and it's such a unique thing about the British culture, and I mean, I love it to some extent because it is fantastic. And you feel like you're not taking yourself seriously, so it's kind of nice to have that lack of seriousness. But then, but like you said, there's that passive aggressive.
There is. It's this weird. It is, and things are said to you that actually someone might say, "Oh, that's interesting," and you think that's interesting, and they're actually having a go at you by saying that. Like,
Oh yeah, there's this whole chart, isn't it? What the Brits say and what you hear and what they actually mean.
It's very,
I adore that.
very,
It's so,
very different.
it's
And once you learn it, it's fine. But and also what I've enjoyed is when we've got lots of friends in the States, is when we go to the States, I'm in a much stronger position than Ange, because Australian culture is much more, even though everyone associates us with the Commonwealth, our language is much more American. So I understand a lot more than she does when we're there.
That's so funny.
Which is nice.
See, third country. Yeah,
exactly. Although I'd quite like to get her back into Australia and get her to try and pronounce some of the Aboriginal place names.
Also, I think experiencing a culture from within, it's, I mean, in an ideal world, obviously everyone would live in each other's country for some time. It's not always possible, and I'm not sure what my husband would say to that, moving to Germany.
No,
but maybe one day, who knows. And
what nationality is he?
He's British. He's English.
All right. So you're both in a neutral country.
Yes, exactly. So it kind of, we're more equal.
And
exactly. It's funny, it's kind of the same thing sometimes, where he's very British, and now it's changed somewhat after all these years, but at the beginning he would say things that were so British, and like I would see people look at him like, what did you just say, or was that offensive, or was it whatever? And he didn't realize, because he was under this false, well, I'm English, everyone understands me, and because I had been the outsider before, I could see what was happening, and I could see it in people's faces, and then I had to be like the interpreter. That's actually what he meant, because he's British, that's how they do it there. And we had a few situations like that where I was like, I know how that feels. And sometimes people just really just don't understand it, just because of pronunciation.
Like,
no, love, you can't say
people,
that here.
No, people get very sensitive,
and I guess that's where I'm, because I'm not a native speaker, I wouldn't use like really strong British slang here anyway, because it's like, why would I do that? I'm not even a native speaker, so I wouldn't. And I kind of toned down my my English or British side, which also isn't great, but I learned to do that, and now it's just whatever it is now.
but that also takes a lot of energy doing that, because I find that when I meet other Australians here, I'm very aware at how fast my language becomes, and I can actually feel my body physically relaxing, like down, and I realize the level of tension that you hold trying to remember to speak, to use words that they're going to understand.
And this is something very intrinsic. I think it just, you really feel it deep down. And I've just recently made a new German friend here.
Oh yeah,
we just moved here, and I didn't really think, it's like, we'll meet up and all that. And I can feel, like you said, that I can just speak,
it's physical,
my language. It's a physical release. It's like and it's so important
that happens. And not till that happens that you then realize what you're holding.
Yes,
the energy that takes.
It's amazing, and I'd come back and I'd feel absolutely rejuvenated. I was like, well, why is that? And I think it's purely because of what you just described. And I think that's what sometimes being in a relationship where you're not native speakers both of the same language. I'm explaining it very clumsily here, because obviously you are both native English speakers, but you're not.
But they're different languages.
So it's kind of the same thing, and I think it really hits you sometimes, that fact, and in a relationship, it's obviously might cause tension as well.
And I've realized that sometimes I have to assert my Australianness, in that we'll be having a conversation and I will say something, and Ange will correct, not in a nasty way, not correct me, but will just say the word in an English way, and she's partly just checking that that's the word I'm meaning, but I will actually say, no, it's this, and I will say, that's how I'm an Australian and that's how we say it. And it's like, sometimes I just have to push and not be the one that's always doing the adjusting. I'm sure she's adjusting, but feeling like I'm adjusting all the time.
But then you get all the, well, we invented the language. There's all these,
had those ones as well.
Oh gosh, we get that so much here. It's like with Americans, because I mean, Americans they love a British accent, and
I know they're
very
obsessed when we
accepting and very, very kind of humble of like, oh yeah, you guys know what you know. But it's actually not true, because the American English has developed completely differently.
Yeah, and language changes.
Exactly. You can't, just because you say something now, pronounce something a certain way in Britain now in the 21st century, doesn't mean that the way that Americans pronounce it is wrong.
Well, no, but I got all like that with some American friends over an Australian word, because we were talking about emus and they kept talking about emus. And I said, no, it's emu. And they said, no, it's emu. That's how we say it. And I said, yes, but it's an Aboriginal word. It's not even an English word. It's emu. And it's like, oh, we'll just leave that alone. And
it's a minefield, isn't it? I mean, if we all pronounced every city in the world the way it was pronounced in the country, I mean,
like
Worcestershire. Overdo it. That'd be that's true.
There's a place here called Launceston, and in Australia we have the same place, but we call it Launceston.
I mean, it's Birmingham, Alabama. Or Alabama, exactly. I should say. Yeah, it's just that's a never-ending conversation. But I think if it's all, if it's all in jest,
it all takes its toll, isn't it?
It definitely takes a toll, and it's so unnecessary sometimes, but also just gives you such a good insight into the psyche of a country and all that. And I always feel like when you are in a relationship with someone from another country, you kind of get extra special access to some things that you wouldn't otherwise. And of course your partner is not a representation of the whole country or psyche, but there are just some things. And this is such the whole stereotype kind of thing. Obviously it's all to do with character and just personality and whatever.
Well, it's the extremes of those characters as well, isn't it? That creates an national identity.
But sometimes, and I felt that way in the UK. I met my husband quite early on, but I didn't really get to make connections with other Brits until we were a couple. It's like I felt like an outsider for a long time there. And I think hadn't I been with him, I wouldn't have met a lot of people and made a lot of connections. And so it's
it does play a huge part. I mean, once you know people, it's fine. And where I live is particularly friendly, even though for me it's still a bit removed sometimes. And people will often say to me, yes, but you live in the south. If you lived up north, people are much friendlier. And I have noticed that there is a different way. But where I live, it's a small community, so there's a completely different way of being. And like you say, you're introduced to people through your spouse. But one of the things I realized was that my whole life had been kind of consumed or subsumed into someone else's life. And not only did I move to here, but I moved into Angie's house. And it's like, how do I find my own space in someone else's house? All my dreams of setting up my own home, buying my own furniture, like creating a home is a dream I've always had. And then to suddenly not have, she's already got an existing house that's full of her stuff, and how do I find my space?
I can't really imagine. That's really hard. Yes,
that's been really hard. I mean, that's been probably one of the things that's given us most stresses, is me having to try to push for that, and her wanting to do the right thing, but also being neurodiverse and not liking change much. And then also she's the last one in her family, so everything that is left of the family is in her house. And for me, there was too much stuff.
That's a lot.
I didn't want to be the bitchy new girlfriend that comes in and moves her house to make myself right. And so she wants things and needs things on display because that helps her with memories and trigger things, because of the way her brain works. And for me, it's like, I can't cope with this. It's too much out. But this is like, it's
that's taking on, but that's, you take on someone else's story as much as you create your own new story for the two of you. But you are, taking on a whole person with a lot of baggage, I think, in every case. But so how do you do it?
Well, I was just going to say, also particularly because she's 18 years older than me, so if we were the same age, we would be building a life at the same rate. She was on a completely different stage of life when I met her, where she's not wanting to acquire things, and it's very, very different. So there's been a lot of challenges that are nothing to do with culture. They're all to do with personalities, which any relationship has. But I realized that for my own sanity, if I didn't make things happen, I wasn't going to survive. I needed to just do things for me and deal with the outfall. And actually, I don't want her to sound like she's been difficult. She hasn't. She's been amazing. But there is a natural body reaction and things that she will cope or not cope with. And she's often said, because I don't remember things, she said, she said, should I just go away for 2 weeks and you just come and change the whole house? And I said, no, because that feels wrong to me to do that. This is your space as well. And so, yeah, it's taken a long time for us to both be comfortable, and me to be comfortable in asserting myself, but also her with both spiritually and personal growth has been massive. Dealing with our own kind of wounds can progressively. And so now Ange is much happier and freer to let things go and to change things, and she's worked through a lot. So we've actually really helped each other get to a point of feeling comfortable with it all. But yeah, it hasn't I mean, it's been good, but it also hasn't been terribly easy at times.
No, and then especially with this last year, because you haven't been able to just push out.
Although this last year we've been all right. We kind of like
forced. And we was talking about this earlier. You're forced to confront those things, right? I think everyone has had to been forced to sit and look at themselves and you know, whatever.
Whether you actually like your spouse, because you've got to spend all that time with them.
Oh, the stories, you know, you talk to your friends and everyone has it's like, oh my God, I'm just going to
stop chewing so loudly.
Well, isn't it? It's just so bizarre. We don't have the same ways of escaping each other. So we're forced to deal with it. And some people, I think, I mean, this year, well, as we've seen, some people have come out stronger and some people have just realized a few hard facts and decided
exactly which is no bad thing. I mean, it depends either way.
It's you can't, I mean, what can we do about the whole thing? We just have to sit in it. But I think doing it in another country and dealing with a whole load of other things outside of the relationship that is tough. And obviously you haven't been able to see family back home.
No, well, that's the thing. Australia, I have times where I wish we'd been there at the beginning of COVID, because we wouldn't have, be very, very different scenario. But it just is. I hate the expression, but it is what it is. You just have to live with what you've got. So.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
So how was kind of winding back to your decision to come out to your mum and then go, I'm actually gonna go to the UK and I'm gonna be. So how was that?
It was a bit complicated because she was fine. She's fine with me being gay, and there's no issue with that at all. But personally, within our family, my father had left a few years earlier, and there was a lot of personal stuff that was just more big change. And it's only now, when I'm a little bit older with a little bit more wisdom, that I realize for my mother how fast everything happened for her. And actually I'm all loved up and just wanting to make my life and move on and all excited, but actually I'd been living with her and we got on really well, and suddenly I go to the UK, meet someone, and I'm leaving. It's just it was quite a lot for her to cope with. So she's done really, really well. She, like all parents, families who are separated, she misses me and wishes that we were closer. And that's one of the sad things of this kind of living elsewhere, is that we're not around each other the day to day. So my mum and my siblings haven't got to know Ange on the level that they would if they lived around the corner, kind of thing. But I mean, it's all great, everything's all wonderful, but it was a big time of change. And also I think because of the family kind of, I'd say trauma really, but the issues that had gone on for me going to England, although I was absolutely like fell in love with Ange and wanted to move on, it was also a way of starting my own life and just, right, this is a clean break, and I can, which of course it isn't, because it follows you, and
nothing is ever, but
I dealt with that a few years later, but
has your mum been to the UK to see you? And
she's come quite a few times. She came for our wedding.
Nice.
She comes and stays with us because my parents lived here in the early 70s, before I was born.
So she still has,
and then she's still got lots of friends. So before I was born, and then
lovely,
when I was 2, we all lived here. So for her, she kind of thought she was done visiting the UK as regularly, but she now comes, and I go down there. I managed to get work in Australia as well, so then I can combine it and make it a work kind of family trip.
That's not, that's perfect.
And then we talk about meeting somewhere else and traveling a bit as well.
But
there also becomes a point when she gets to an age and a mobility where she's unable to do that. So she's still able to at the moment, but there comes a point that I have to.
I think that's another expat dilemma that gets to us all at some point, where you have to make some decisions, and
But I also think I do feel really lucky with Ange that we've never been that couple that needs to spend every night with each other, like you can't bear to be away from each other. We actually, because I work from home and she's now retired, we're around each other a lot. So for us to go off, and she says, oh, it's absolute, she said, I know it's key for you, it's like your lifeblood. And she said, it's an adventure, you go off, and she said, I don't care if you want to go off for 6 months, do. She said, it's not a problem, but just as long as you come back and tell me about all your adventures. So that freedom is a massive gift for me, because she knows how I just
need
that. I don't. Exactly. And I'm 18 years younger. I'm still wanting to get out and get at life, and she is too, but not quite the same way. So those kind of understandings are really important to really get to know who each other is in those early stages. It's incredibly important.
So I mean, we talked a lot about how you both influence each other, and you kind of balance each other out in terms of you helped her develop her wings in some ways, and to just kind of overcome a lot of those issues, and then obviously, I mean, it sounds like she's had that influence on you the other way around too. But if I asked her now, what would she say is the most English thing about you now? How English have you become?
Well, funnily enough, we were talking about this the other day, and I said to her, what, like, I asked the question, and we just both sat there in silence. We were driving at the time. We sat there in complete silence, and we couldn't come up. And then she suddenly said, nothing. And then she said, ooh, she said, why would you want to be English? She said, that's the best thing about you, is that you aren't. and she said, you're so Australian. And she said, and I love it. And she said, that's why you're my wife. So,
oh, that's so funny. That's such a that's such an English thing to say.
I know it is. It's very, very English. Very, very English. But she's kind of not typically English. She's quite bold, and she's quite quirky because of her neurodiversity. So we always find that we're in shops and just bizarre things happen, and we always end up screaming, laughing, and kind of people not quite sure if we're being serious or not. And it's like I've allowed, by being Australian and being me, it's brought the kind of more relaxed side of her out a bit as well.
That's funny. Although I do think of I know a lot of quirky English people.
Yeah, they're quirky and mad kind of
definitely, where people in other countries might look at you and go, and people do look at you and go like, what is this? Just
no, she's definitely quirky. Someone actually once, she used to just talk about things in her life. She led an extraordinary life, and someone who we know locally actually asked someone else who's Andrew's oldest friend, and actually said, is everything that she says, is it actually true? And he said, yeah, it is. And it's so kind of odd that people can't believe what happened. So one of the things I love about being with her is she's brought this quirk to me, in that I used to be quite serious and quite contained, and once people got to know me, I was quite outspoken and jokey, but it took me a long time to kind of break out of that. And I've really loved that she's kind of freed me up in that way. and much more happy to make a fool of myself rather than thinking I'm going to be judged by doing something silly or that kind of thing. So
do you feel
I
like
really
that's a more English quality?
No, well, possibly, but possibly not, because Angie's neurodiverse and had I wouldn't say peculiar, but it was normal to her, but kind of an upbringing that was quite different, and weird things and kind of absolute extremes of things happening, that her normality, I don't think is normality for a lot of English people. It was such a life that she's just been in her, I won't say her bubble, but a kind of, you only know your own life, and it's not till you really get to know someone on a deeper level that you realize that actually someone lives entirely differently to you, or how you eat, or your attitude to things, or all those things that you've only known your own childhood life, and when you start to explore yourself and find out who you are.
It's that when you're a little kid and you go to your friend's house and you realize that people do things differently.
They do things differently, and it's like, oh, that's a bit weird. And I kind of had that when I met her, because I hadn't really had relationships before. So this was like, oh, this is a whole new thing to add to everything else that was changing. So no, I think it's more about her being quirky, because people always think she's quirky, and we're often screaming, laughing at things that happen just because she thinks so differently to other people, which has its challenges, but also has a lot of fun.
And I guess that appealed to your kind of own quirky, and I guess also more open Australian side.
Yeah, very much so. And that's one of the things I find difficult here, is the closed, kind of passive, silent nature of they don't reveal a lot of personal information, and Australians can be like that too, but on the whole we're generally more like Americans, where you just go and talk to strangers and chat, and Angie's very like that, like me, so it actually works well. Her childhood meant that's how she behaves. I mean, she didn't get a diagnosis until she was 50, so she's had a lot of her life wondering why she was different, and so it's a bit of a joke, really. I mean, she will properly kind of own it and say to someone, now I can't understand that, or I need it presented to me in this way, can you please tell me? And so we joke often that when she's being a bit particularly quirky, or she gets this funny look on her face, and we always just laugh. But I always joke about, like, that I didn't read the small print when we got married, that there was all this extra stuff that I didn't know about, but it's what makes her her, and she wouldn't be who she is without it. So it's good. It's really good on that score.
And I mean, come on, we don't, we fall in love, we don't necessarily even want to read the small print.
No, well, I think I wouldn't have read
it's I don't want to know all this.
No, and she actually said to me once, "Oh, I'm sorry." She said, I wish I'd known when we met. And I said, it wouldn't have actually made a difference. I wouldn't have understood what I was doing then. Yeah.
Well, Cath, thank you so much for talking to me. This has been
my pleasure.
So interesting, and I think really valuable. And thank you for being so open as well. It's being in a cross-cultural relationship has so many challenges, but then having the neurodiversity on top of it, and and meeting someone at different life stages and all that kind of thing. So thank you for being so open.
Yeah, absolutely. And also with neurodiversity, it's not visible unless you know what you're looking for. It's not visible, and I talk about my challenges, but from Angie's point of view, she goes through life feeling different and being different, and it's all I try to do is to imagine what that's like, and to make her life as easy as possible without killing my own. One of the key things is to understand your own lens and what you see, what you look through, and understand your partner's lens of what they look through. To then it just reduces an awful lot of arguments and misunderstandings.
But I do feel that as someone who has lived in various countries, we've learned to look at things from another lens. It even just from I'm from Germany, and I'm living in this other country now, and then just learning how that there is a different way of looking at things, because I think a lot of people, not that I want to say we're superior human beings, but it's
but
a lot
monoculture
of people
don't
do not even think to do that,
yeah.
or just on the surface they'll just all lump everyone in one kind of, and I think that changes something inside of you, changes when you move to another country and when you actually live there and you're not just visiting, you actually live there and you absorb the culture. And I think that you just look at everyone in a different way from that you automatically put yourself into the other person's shoes more. And I think that's and that's probably that's what helped you.
Different or potential agitations that you might
exactly, and you don't expect certain things from the other person, because you're like, well, they've had a different, the culture's different, the upbringing's different,
absolutely. Well, and equally she often says, I think there needs to be more research and work and people talking about what it's like to live with someone who is from the other country. That I'm in her home country. Well, she was born in Africa, but she's been here for 60 years. But how, like, she was thinking of giving a paper at Families in Global Transition on being the person that lives with the expat when you're the local one, and how that impacts your life and how different that makes it. And
that is such a good point. Yeah, so interesting.
So she sees expatriate life through me, even though she's not, but then she also sees difference through her own difference of neurodiversity, but also being gay and also being gender neutral and all this other stuff. So you can get differences in all kinds of ways, but that perspective of living with someone who's never quite settled for someone who needs to be settled is quite interesting.
We could probably spend another 2 hours talking about we'll end up somewhere completely different, but we'll
away from where we're meant to be.
But that's the interesting thing about having those conversations, I think, because it takes you somewhere. Well, it was good to see you, Cath.
And you, lovely chat, and I'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
Cool.
Bye. Bye. So that was my conversation with Cath. I had no idea we would be talking about neurodiversity and all the challenges that brings into a new relationship. But that's the beauty of these interviews. You never know what you're going to get. And if you have someone like Cath, who has so much experience, not only with expat life, and by the way, she is a fantastic resource, so make sure you check out her website. A fantastic resource for anything to do with belonging, identity, and healing. Yeah, she's just such a warm, open person. And I think that really came across in our conversation. And as I said, that's what I love about these interviews. It's just eye-opening sometimes, and I really appreciate Cath's honesty and also her very pragmatic attitude. Amazing. By mentioning her website, I also would like to point out the book that Cath has written, or rather drawn. She mentions that she's an illustrator, and in addition to doing commissioned illustrations, she also published this book a few years ago, Living Elsewhere, and it's a fantastic coffee table book. It's a great gift for someone who is an expat, or someone who's planning to become an expat. It's full of really fun illustrations of expat life. She also has a whole range of other quirky gifts in her gift shop, including t-shirts and bags, pillows and mugs, which reminds me, Cath, if you're listening, please set aside one of those mugs for me. There is one that is called Dog Lost in Transition, and it has this red dog that looks just like a very neat version of my own shaggy dog, who's trying to figure out what language he should bark in. And it's hilarious. So please, Cath, yes, I would love one of those. And if I make it to the UK this summer, which I really, really hope I will, then we can even save the international delivery fee. Wouldn't that be amazing? It's so good to have some hope again. I'm still a little bit too scared to make firm plans, but yes, I'm hopeful. And I hope you are too. Gosh, that's a lot of hoping. Anyway, that's it from me for today. Stay safe out there. and see you next time